Ali, it's okay. You're not that old. Your audition for One Direction didn't go that well. It's okay. We'll tell the guys from the BBC that you're only 23.
There's always been a bit of you need to be young to be in a band or making music. I think that's a load of nonsense.
It all has its roots in the whole teen idol. It's always been about since Elvis, probably before that, then the Beatles, like One Direction, Justin Bieber, all these sorts of people. And
Billie
it's just
Eilish.
Yeah, Billie Eilish. Whatever the record labels think they can market and get guaranteed sales.
There's plenty of artists that have made it or broke into the music scene much later on. Here's some of them. Hello, you are watching Dare Missed Mondays. I'm Ali.
I'm Craig.
And today we're going to be talking about some artists that broke into a music career.
The mainstream when they weren't really that young.
My first one is Sheryl Crow.
I didn't realise you were a big fan. I'm just learning this now. I knew you liked her, but I didn't know it was like poster material.
Well, I did actually have Sheryl Crow's poster.
Do you know, like the fact you had Sheryl Crow's poster only goes to show that it doesn't matter what age you are. Do you know what I mean?
I was about 11 or 12 or 13. She was 32 when she was releasing her first album. I absolutely loved Sheryl Crow when I was growing up, and she released her first album, Tuesday Night Music Club, back in 1993. I think Sheryl Crow was a music teacher before she started off in music. Yeah, didn't break out until she was in her early 30s. First album was an absolute killer album. She's had an absolute monster of a career. She's even done a James Bond theme, Tomorrow Never Dies. Pierce Brosnan.
Now she's like super country.
She sold about 50 million albums worldwide, and there was definitely other reasons why I was into Sheryl Crow. And some of the sounds on that first album were almost Prince-esque, dare I say. Tracks like Solidify. The first album actually didn't get released by the record label. They thought it was too overproduced, too slick. I don't even know what they were thinking. Musicians that played on that album were part of an ad hoc group called the Tuesday Night Music Club, which is where the album name came from, and I think that helped the album to be quite diverse. Next
is C6 Steve. I remember he was one of the first people that I really got into, and I saw him on Jules Holland the night that it broke and went big time. We worked out he must have been about 55 when he hit the big time. He has this kind of like stage persona where he gives the impression that he's a busker and like that's what he's done his whole life, and he's got all these old trashed out guitars with like 3 strings on them and
that he's found in a bin.
He claimed to have played with a lot of people as like a session guy, from people like Lightning Hopkins, Joni Mitchell, blues players. Eventually he opened up his own guitar store in Olympia near Seattle. Obviously,
a lot of good music in Seattle.
Yeah, the grunge scene was kicking off in the 90s. He had a guitar store there and he recorded bands. I think he must have had his own wee studio. He recorded a debut album for Modest Mouse, who are a pretty big band, but not in any way related to C6 Steve's style of music. It's strange because he's like obviously a very talented producer, and then in the kind of early 2000s he decided that he was going to move to Norway, opened a new recording studio there and recorded his debut album, which was championed by a London DJ at the time. That was how he ended up getting his way onto Jules Holland. He's great, his music's brilliant, you know, it's just classic blues stuff and it's quite fun, you know, doesn't take itself too seriously.
But he was 55.
Yeah, exactly.
Next for me is James Murphy from LCD Sound System. James Murphy was a DJ before that and worked with Tim Goldsworthy. I think he was only 22 when he got offered to be a writer on the TV show Seinfeld. I think he thought it wasn't really a big deal and turned it down. And then went on to form LCD Sound System back in 2001. I think he was about 35. 2005 was the first LCD Sound System album. Well, Daft Punk is playing in my house,
Like, I don't think he set out to be a singer in a band, do you know what I mean? Which is the interesting thing. He just had a vision and just went with it.
And the thing I like about him is he looks like he could be your dad, you know?
Yeah,
He's
he looks like He looks like he'd give a good hug.
Definitely a good huggable person. Can't do that in COVID
No,
times. There we go. Dreaded COVID getting back.
When was the last time you had a hug from a stranger?
When was the last time I had a hug from anybody? He's actually someone who's a real role model for like how to pursue a career in music. He's always been involved in producing, composing for film, running a label, DJing, collaborating with loads of other people. And he's 50 now.
50, maybe
50's the new
30,
21.
Yeah, 30 years ago, 50 was a wee bit older, but now 50s, people are healthier, you know. You keep wearing those yellow glasses you've got, man. They're gonna stretch your lifespan right out.
Yeah, man.
Your blue light absorbing glasses, look at that. Oof, that's gonna take years off you, man. That'll get us a record deal.
Next,
Debbie Harry.
Ooh.
This one was a surprise to me. I really did not expect Debbie Harry to be on this list. When she was younger, she was actually a Playboy bunny. I don't know that either.
Ooh.
But she was actually involved in the 60s folk scene, which was a surprise as well. She was a backing singer for a band called Wind in the Wills. Singing, she obviously liked being a singer. She wanted to be a singer in a band. Eventually, she met Chris Stein, who ended up being her husband in the kind of early beginnings of the New York punk scene in 1974. So they didn't release their first album until 1976. By that time she was 31. And if you look at like the videos of the band at that time,
she doesn't look like she's 31.
No, she definitely doesn't look like she's 31. She's like the Marilyn Monroe of the 70s to some extent, you know. I always compare ages of rock stars to Keith Richards because he just looks
he looks old.
Yeah, he just looks like
he's always looked old.
Someone said every time you smoke a cigarette you get 10 minutes taken off your life and it goes to Keith Richards.
Poor Keith.
But Debbie Harry from Blondie is actually only a year younger than Keith Richards, so wow. There you go.
That is incredible.
That is incredible. That's Debbie Harry.
And this is Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen was born in 1934, but he actually started off his early career as a writer and a poet. I didn't really turn his hand to music until I think it was 33. His first album was released in 1967. That's just unbelievable. But he went on to make music right up until the day he died. I remember listening to that when it came out. Jason, when we were on reality TV, put it on. I'm pretty sure we were all in the van when he first put it on. Mm-hmm. And I just remember how intense.
You want a dagger?
We killed the flame.
It's in here. It's like.
Well, he always had a low range voice.
He did, but I mean the way
this just was another level.
Oh, yeah. That album is a masterpiece.
I remember looking at you guys just with like eyes wide open, thinking, "Oh my goodness, that is actually off the scale."
A lot of it is attributed to his son, Adam Cohen. Basically, Leonard Cohen was dying when he recorded the album, but his son just kept encouraging him and basically recorded the album pretty much on his deathbed, line by line. And when you hear the album, I mean, it is intense and you really need to be in the mood for listening to it. But
and it's compiled by the fact that he passed away 3 weeks before that was released.
You can tell though that he's a master of songwriting. I mean, he wrote Hallelujah. That's probably one of the greatest songs ever written. And just shows you like he persisted with his writing and just
his early career in writing and poetry certainly wasn't lost. Next on the list,
Run the Jewels. So Run the Jewels is a rap duo, and they both made it when they were about 38. So
I'm 38, I think.
Killer Mike and LP, right? They were both rappers on their own right. I mean, to be fair to Killer Mike, he rapped on an Outkast song that won a Grammy in like 2000. So basically they got introduced by a network executive for Cartoon Network. I don't know how that Cartoon story Network went down. Yeah, it was a TV producer guy that introduced them to each other. And they featured on tracks by each other. Killer Mike featured on LP's tracks. LP featured on Killer Mike's. Killer Mike liked them, so he got LP to produce his album. And that year, they just decided, oh well, let's just start a new project, and they called it Run the Jewels.
It's not something I would be drawn to myself, but
yeah, I didn't think that at first, but it's got that. A lot of their music from a music point of view, which is LP, who's the kind of producer. It's almost like rap music combined with old school trashy 8-bit chiptune thing going on. They say things that not a lot of people would say. Their album that came out this year, all about like what ended up being Black Lives Matter, but they wrote it all before that, basically around the time that the George Floyd incident happened. The album kind of really just sums up how this year's went. So remember, if you enjoyed this content, to like, subscribe. Don't forget to ring the bell. It gives you a little notification when we upload a video. Probably end up being 11 at night on a Monday, but you know,
usually the case.
Yeah.
And until next week, we'll see you later. We've been Dermist, and you've been watching Dermist Mondays.
See ya.
Bye.
Cut.